Hi everyone, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks, and today I've got a full tank review for you on this. It's the DBV-152 and it is the second Czech tank destroyer going into the game, and this one is a tier 10 vehicle that will be inside the assembly shop. You'll be able to probably get 40,000 of them on the European server with a unique style and 40,000 of them without. Most likely it's going to cost you 1 million free experience, or you can spend a variety of other currency to be able to get it. But today it's my duty to let you know whether it's going to be worth the price tag. So this is the new hardest hitting snipey tank. I don't think you could really call the Jagdpanzer E100 or the FV405 a sniper. This has 152mm that hits for 800. Now that's not as much as the other 155mm did back in the day, 850, but it's definitely a touch above a vehicle like the Grilla, for example, which this is a very close competitor. This vehicle is lightly armored. It has a fully traversable turret, unlike the Grilla, and unlike the Grilla as well, it's not very short, but it's not tall, which means that its camera rating is significantly better. So, is this just a better Grilla that you have to spend 1 million free experience on? Well, that's what I'm going to let you know today. So, let's see how it stacks up compared to the tech tree German counterpart, the Grilla 15. So immediately we notice that these two tanks have tiny differences in the gun caliber. 152 on the DBV-152 versus 150 on the Grilla. Now this is important for overmatching 50mm plates. So for example, the turret, top of the turret on a 60 TP, the DBV-152 can overmatch, the Grilla will ricochet off. The slightly larger caliber gives it 800 alpha damage compared to the 750 on the Grilla, and it has a little bit better penetration at 281 compared to the 279. However, the shell velocity is just a touch worse at 1160 compared to the Grillas, but as you can see, it's all very similar. Unfortunately, this vehicle has a mammoth reload time of 20.5 seconds base before you would improve it, compared to the Grilla's 18, and the Grilla has significantly better damage per minute compared to the DBV-152, where one of the biggest weaknesses of this tank is very poor damage per minute. A lot like the Object 268 version 5, which I just thought this is a good vehicle to kind of compare it to as well. Gold-wise, the DBV-152, it's a bit disappointing. 330mm of heat pen and 76mm of HE, and the HE only does 980, which is a lot, but it's not a big step up from 800. If we look at the Grilla, for example, the Grilla's doing 950, which is 200 more than its standard shells. The Grilla also has slightly better heat rounds and better HE rounds as well. Actually, so slightly worse HE rounds at 75 compared to 76, but the rounds suck compared to the 268 version 5, which has 395 heat, 1100 HE with 90mm of pen. Luckily, not only does the DBV-152 hit harder than the other two vehicles in this comparison, it also carries 5 extra rounds, so you can take a variety of ammunition you won't run out by the end of the battle. Gun handling wise, the DBV-152 is just a touch worse than the Grilla in most areas, but it's still very good. 1.6 aim time, great. 0.32 accuracy, great. And it definitely makes the Object 268 version 5 look awful in that regard. However, the vehicle's movement dispersion of 0.3 is horrendous. When it turns the tank, 0.3, again, horrendous. And when it turns the turret, 0.3, that's really bad, but not nearly as bad as the Grilla's 0.4. Gun depression wise, the DBV-152 has 7 degrees, the same as the Grilla, definitely better than the 268 version 5, and it has a fully traversable turret, unlike the Grilla, which is just a massive advantage on this tank, because what you can do is turn the turret the whole way round and then just run away from your opponents at 52 kilometers an hour, which is the vehicle's top speed limit. Now, its reverse speed is 14, just a bit worse than the other two vehicles in this comparison, but not unusable. The power to weight of 20.5 is very similar to the Grillas, and a passing mention should be made to the fact that this vehicle only weighs 34 tons, so if you've got any good ramming tanks, it might be a good thing to take these out onto the battlefield when people get them on Thursday. Ground resistance wise, this vehicle is better than the Grilla, which actually means it will be slightly more agile, but it does have a touch worse turret traverse at 18. But better tank traverse, meaning it's much more agile when you take into account those ground resistances. So armor-wise, it's really not good news for the DBV-152. It has 70 on the front, 30 on the side of the hull, and 140 on the front of the turret and 60 on the side of the turret. This is where the Object 268 version 5, which isn't a very heavily armored tank, looks mega in comparison to these two other sniping tanks. So let's imagine that you're getting shot by a big old AP shell from another DBV-152. Yeah, well, you're pretty much just not ricocheting anything, apart from off the front of the hull. But at least when people are shooting HE at you, unlike the Gorilla, they can't take advantage. One thing is for sure, if you thought that a rear turreted tank would mean that you could side scrape, you'll be very disappointed because all 91mm caliber guns are going to overmatch the whole of the side of your vehicle. One of the advantages of this tank, however, is that it doesn't have much area or height above the gun, which does mean that when you do find a ridge where you can use the 7 degrees of gun depression, you can quite often get the shot off and then be able to pull back quickly. And this is something the Gorilla can only dream of, as they've pretty much been able to shoot you for a second or two before you've managed to even get the gun on their turret. So all in all, I wouldn't say the DBV-152 has good armor, but does it have horrendous armor like the Gorilla? No, certainly not. Unfortunately, it doesn't have very many hit points. 1,750 is slightly worse than the Gorilla and massively worse than the 268 version 5. The vehicle also has quite a vulnerable ammo rack, so I would suggest taking safe stowage on this vehicle if you want to avoid that. However, one of the best things about this tank is the camo rating. 18.5 when stationary and 11.12 when you're moving. That's amazing. It's double the camo rating on the Gorilla. Accordingly, you really don't need to take an exhaust on this tank, and you could take an exhaust on the Gorilla and you still won't have as good camo as you would do on the DBV-152. However, this good news is blown away by the 370 meters base view range that this vehicle gets, which it means that I have to take coated optics now if I want to have good view range. Crew-wise, this vehicle uses the same loadout as the TVP-100, so if you do have a crew from that tank, you will do well in this. However, I don't think that the 80,000 people who are probably going to buy this tank, probably all of them have the TVP-100. And so a lot of players on Thursday will have to train completely fresh crews on this tank. Accordingly, I think the matchmaker on Thursday is going to be very, 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 very easy for tier 10 tank destroyers. So do with that what you will, World of Tanks player base. So crew skill wise, I would recommend Brothers, Repairs, Concealment, Recon, Emergency, and Coordination on your commander. For the radio operator skills, situational awareness, firefighting, and jamming will do me very well. For my gunner skills, Brothers, Repairs, Concealment, you must take Snapshot, and I'm going to be taking Concentration and Armor to be able to improve this vehicle's accuracy a lot like I do with the Gorilla. For my driver, Brothers, Repairs, Concealment, Off-Road Driving to improve the poor soft terrain resistances this vehicle has, Engineer, and Smooth Ride. And for your loader skills, I'm going to be taking Brothers, Repairs, Concealment, Intuition to make use of the heat rounds, Ammo Tuning to be able to gain some alpha damage and to reduce the disparity in penetration, and I'm going to be taking Perfect Charge. However, if you can handle the vehicle's shell velocity, then you might want to take Safe Stowage instead so you don't get blown up occasionally. And yeah, I got blown up a couple of games in the vehicle in my couple of hours playing this vehicle for this tank review. Equipment wise, I'm going to be using vents, coated optics, and I'm going to be using an experimental turbo on this tank. Now, if we draw comparisons to my Gorilla build is aiming device with an exhaust and an experimental turbo. But this vehicle, it has enough camo, unlike the Gorilla. I can have 28% camo while I'm moving. That's absolutely fine. So I feel like I want to use the coated optics instead to get 487 meters view range, because without the coated optics, if I demount them, even if I have a perfect crew, I can only get 437 meters view range with a premium consumable. That just absolutely won't do inside World of Tanks for me on those snipey maps. Now, a lot of you will be saying, oh, QB, you're not taking a gun rammer. Well, on my second build, I do. I take gun rammer, vents with a experimental turbo. And that's for those maps where I'm going to be close quarters combat and I don't need the view range to be able to spot my opponents. But 80% of the maps, I will take vents, coated optics, and I'll be taking the mobility improvement system. This vehicle has 800 alpha, so it's not often about getting the shots off quickly, as in firing on with a very, very good reload, but more about just making them hit. And I think that the accuracy and the aim time and all of the advantages, especially the view range that you'll get from the vents, will vastly outweigh a gun rammer on this tank. And I guess what you could do is just drop the experimental turbo, think the vehicle's fast enough, but just remember how bad this vehicle's dispersion values were when you're turning the turret. So, field mods. I'm going to be taking reinforced suspension. I'm going to be improving the accuracy of the vehicle. I'm going to be improving the view range of the vehicle. I'm going to take a spotting slot to be able to improve either the vents or the coated optics. For the penultimate field mod, this is a decision that you'll have to make. Do you want to have better accuracy, or do you want to have the better reload? Firepower-wise, if I was to go the other way, I could literally add 150 to the damage per minute of this vehicle. I could shave 1 second off the reload if I wanted to go the other way. But my accuracy, instead of being 0.25, would go up to 0.28. And trust me, with a tank that has this long reload, it doesn't really matter if you reload in 18.5 seconds or 17.5. It's more about hitting those shots accurately. Something that I really figured out with my making the Gorilla great again. And this vehicle's very similar, so I'm going to be applying the same ideas. And for the final field mod, I'm going to be improving the engine power of this vehicle, as it's got very good aim time, and I want to be able to get around the map to deliver my shells. Anyway, that's quite enough theory crafting. Let's see what the new assembly shop tank does on the battlefield. So what better way to showcase a sniping tank destroyer than playing on Prokhorovka, right? Unfortunately, as you can see, our Rheinmetall Panzerwagen, they don't seem like they're very happy. They say, again against Manticore, I am out. That's like the last thing that you want to see when you're playing World of Tanks on Prokhorovka in a sniping tank destroyer, is your light tank saying that they're going to get themselves killed at the start of the battle. He literally says, watch me, how fast I can get myself killed. Yeah, fantastic. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. I tried to give them a little bit of a motivation boost by saying, just relax, you can do it. You can do it, Mr. Non-field modded Rheinmetall Panzerwagen. Well, how about this? I'll do it myself. See? 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 So, yeah, I guess the Rheinmetall isn't having such a bad time. And ladies and gents, boys and girls, maybe I should just save you all time right now. This vehicle, it's basically a gorilla that's just different in areas, but it absolutely slaps when it comes down to sniping. See the vehicle's gun handling there? Not too bad. Just like I said with my gorilla video, if you're feeling a little bit spicy, you could spend 9,000 credits per game to be able to improve the snapshot capability on this vehicle. If you take snapshot, you train it up to 100%, and you spend 9,000 credits on a snapshot directive, you're going to have on this vehicle 20% better turret traverse dispersion. And trust me, it helps oh so much, especially when you stack it with the experimental turbo. I actually must say something though. Usually I try to only use tier 1 experimental turbo. I haven't been playing much World of Tanks recently, so I was on my press account. I've slapped on a level 3 experimental turbo, where I usually only use level 1 experimental turbo. As you can see, I'm using regular vents and regular coated optics. I try to set my vehicles up for these reviews. I'm not saying my masterclass videos where I'm on my main account, for example, but when I'm doing these reviews on my press account, I try to use regular equipment, so the vehicle and regular consumables, apart from the food, which you should use, really, at tier 10. Even if you're a relative free-to-play player, unless you're doing some kind of like a challenge. To try and make it so that the vehicle that you see me play is going to be the vehicle that you kind of play. Now, I will say that this vehicle, without the field mods, it'll be a lot worse. To sacrifice that 7% accuracy, as well as also to not have the mobility that you get from the second field mod with the tracks, painful to not have. But I tell you what is just not painful at all with this tank. Just hitting these shells. Come on, baby. Come on, baby. I can hit this. I got this. I got this, right? Who shall I go for? The VZ55? Shall I go for the 277? Man, this feels like a fun gun. It really does. And I thoroughly would recommend you try setting this vehicle up in the way that I suggested, like in my Make the Gorilla Great Again video. Because, oh man, having the accuracy on this tank, oh, feels just absolutely delicious. Again, the only thing that I'm toying with here is, would I want to drop the experimental turbo and just use an aiming device on this vehicle and literally just go for full spotting and full view range within that regard? Or would I just drop the coated optics and go for the aiming device and just pray that my medium tanks and light tanks don't suck? I think that might be a little bit of a something that you probably shouldn't do in World of Tanks, right? Always depend on your lights and your mediums, at least for all of my builds. But man, this gun, like, look at this gun. It just feels great. It really does. True story, this was my first game playing World of Tanks. It was my first game playing World of Tanks in about a week. So my aim was a little bit shaky. But we'll still see if we can be able to pull off a few good shots before the end of the battle. And let's be honest, the first shot in this battle on that Manticore was the most important shot, right? If you can be able to shut down a Manticore at the start of the game, oh yeah. Oh yeah, I love seeing Super Conqueror roasted. And they get finished off by the grill. And you can see that I'm spotting for myself right now because of the vents and the coated optics. And so not only am I getting all of that juicy experience, I'm also getting the assistance just a little bit for the griller behind me. Yeah, eat your heart out, Rheinmetall Panzerwagen, right? I joke. He's doing a good job. He managed to get rid of the Manticore, and that's all you got to do, right? Will we be able to hit this shot? I changed to heat rounds because at a decent distance, those OP shells, they're going to lose quite a lot of the pen over the distance. Going to go down to 261, but the heat shells against a flat surface at 330 will outperform 261 AP. And they go right through the front of the Foch. And are you noticing just my damage? Just up, 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 up. When you hit for 800 average, you really don't have to hit many shots. If you think about it with a tank like this, again, spotting the 277 for my griller there. It's quite telling, right? I've literally got a griller behind me. He's still hitting shots. I'm hitting shots. We're both farming damage. But you see, the thing is that I've got so much better camo that I can afford to take those coated optics and be able to spot for him. Whereas he kind of has to take an exhaust. He doesn't have to. But if he doesn't, he's going to be getting spotted a lot easier by these heavies. And oh man, I love it. Right through the turret on the 277. GG. I think I might have fired an HE shell there, actually, in retrospect, if my brain is working. 103 damage with these fairly big HE shells. 152 HE shell with 76 pen, right? Or was it 75 pen on this and the griller? No, 76 on this and 75 on the griller. I just think it's a bit weird that it's only got 980 HE. Why does this thing only gain 180 HE damage when the griller gains 200, for example? You think this one would gain like 220? It should probably be doing like 1020 damage, I feel like, with the HE shells. Oh, man, this tank slaps. It really does. It really does. Right through the front of the 907, and I love half-healthing Clan Wars tanks. Pretty much in a single shot, like 800 damage? It's not a joke. It's really not a joke. It's not like a Jaegeru on an FV405, but you show me the Jaegeru or the FV4005 that can be this sneaky in this position, not getting spotted, that can be as accurate as I've managed to make my DBV-152. It's just not a thing. And while the FV405 does have a traversable turret, it's not fully traversable. The Jagdpanzer 100 can't do what I was doing, which was pointing over the back of the tank and being ready to run away at 50 kilometers an hour. And what you saw there was pretty much just the DBV-152 in a nutshell. You know, just the perfect aspects of the tank. The rear-mounted turret means that you can shoot and scoot. The fully traversable really helps out. The gun handling, oh, it just works. It works, boys and girls. I love my griller. You would have probably seen in a video that I released like a couple days ago, if you're watching this on Tuesday, which I believe is the NDA for the DBV-152, how much I love the griller. And this one, oh, just let's go, man, let's go. This tank feels absolutely awesome. Until you got to twiddle your thumbs a little bit. What's this long reload? I'd actually like it if I had a better reload now. I'd actually like it if I was using a gun rammer now, but it still worked out for me. It's a GG. 6,500 damage that we saw and 4 kills, 7,000 combined. And importantly, we had the gun handling and the shell velocity from the perfect charge to be able to shut down that Manticore at the start of the battle. And that baby little Rheinmetall Panzerwagen that was wanting to throw all of its toys out of the pram, Uncle Scrubs got you even in his first game in this brand new tank. All right, so game 2. Now you join me playing on the Live Oaks map. We're 4 minutes into the game because I just didn't really have a chance to shoot at anything. So one thing that's really weird about this vehicle is it's fast, it's fairly sneaky, So you can kind of take it anywhere you want, but if you try and take it to the front too fast, you can quite often still get caught. Maybe a light tank, maybe a medium tank, maybe somebody just rushes you, and you don't have much armor. You don't have many hit points. You will absolutely get lit up. And so I think one of the things that you will have to work on with this vehicle as a player is knowing just how far you can push your luck. However, I also now want to show you just how quickly you can snowball. Having done 0 damage for the first 4 minutes of this battle, I really want to show you just how satisfying this gun is and how cheeky you can be if you've saved your hit points, and just how flexible this tank is. It just feels a bit more like a medium tank within this regard. Yeah, I'll take it. It's not the best use of my 800 damage. I'd rather put it into the Jagdpanzer 100, but that's fine. So I actually come around the corner so I can spot the Jaegeru. I want to share that spotting with whoever's managing to get him. And yeah, again, just take a look. After we did nothing for the first 4 minutes of this battle, this thing chases damage pretty well. Quite a lot of tank destroyers, I'm looking at you T123, T124, they can feel very frustrating for chasing damage. I don't even know how I managed to bounce a Jaegeru there. Looks like they bounced off my turret front. Alright, I'll take it. AP round, 170mm AP round with like 300mm of pen ricocheting off like 80mm of armor there. But yeah, I'll take it. But yeah, again, I want to highlight that this vehicle, not only is it fun for sniping, it is actually quite fun for chasing damage. And while it doesn't have the best damage per minute, again, it has that long reload. And that long reload will get even worse if you don't take a gun rammer on it, which I still recommend that you do. Well, I recommend that you do avoid taking the gun rammer, invest into other aspects of the tank. But man, the damage just adds up. And it's these high alpha damage opportunities where I was able to get pretty respectable damage and pretty respectable combines on this tank. And while we did absolutely nothing for the first 4 minutes of the battle, we actually end up with a very satisfying 5,800 combined in the next like 2 or 3 minutes. So push your luck, test your limits, see where you can take this tank, because with it being so flexible, kind of like the sky's the limit for what you can achieve. And let's do exactly the same thing here. Look, I sat at the back, I knocked down some trees. I hoped that the enemies would push. They didn't push. You can see I'm 4.5 minutes into this game, and once again, I've done 0 damage. And during my play with this vehicle, I was really trying to figure out, is this kind of your tank destroyer that you just chill and you wait for snipes? Or is this the tank destroyer that you can also manage to try and get forwards? Oh, baby, that shot to the cupola of the T110E5. This thing's gun handling, this thing's accuracy, this thing's penetration, and this thing's alpha damage. It is not one to mess with. So what I'm going to show here is that if that kind of sniping gameplay doesn't quite work out for you because your opponents just don't drive out in front of you and you don't manage to create any kill zones, how good this tank is once again for just being flexible and just chasing damage. So we did nothing for our first 4 minutes. Let's see what we can be able to achieve with the next 3 to 4 minutes. Sometimes it's these mid parts of the game where if you have looked after your hit points, that you can be able to make a difference. And this vehicle, in all of the games that I played, a bit like a Gorilla, but even more so than a Gorilla, especially with this build, that this tank seems to have magical mid-points or mid-parts of the game. It seems to be very successful when there's a bit more space, almost as if it's a bit more of a medium tank. And that's a weird thing to be saying in a tank destroyer, because usually tank destroyers are very good early for being able to provide those opportune fires, but then quite a lot of the tank destroyers, they just get out-spotted by mediums or lights, or they get locked down without turrets. They don't have the flexibility to be able to fight back or to reposition. And this one really can. This is almost like a glass cannon medium tank in a way, with regards to its camo and regards to its flexibility on its turret. And again, set up like this, the only thing that you're going to be lacking is that damage per minute. But if this was a tier 9 medium, you wouldn't really be concerned about the vehicle's damage per minute. So in this situation, I guess I could have switched out to an HE round. But I'm a 50-50 to be able to take them out with 2 AP shells anyway. If I hit the first AP shell, the second HE should be able to finish them off. I'll be very surprised if you roll that much lower than 800. And with 980 HE for the second shell, that should be enough, right? So the only thing I'm a little bit concerned about right now is the tortoises in the center. I probably could be able to shoot them right now, but I'm mostly focused on the WT. I have a little bit of a check, and actually I couldn't be able to get the tortoise behind the building. I'm going to intuition switch here to an HE. I definitely recommend you take intuition on this tank, especially with the vents. It can actually intuition switch faster than a grilla. And boom! Right through the side of the turret. Good night, sweetheart. And yeah, just like that, we've gone from doing absolutely nothing for the first part of this battle to now actually being up to 4K, getting a couple of kills, making the difference in one of those close battles. Can we manage to be able to get the tortoise here? Of course, yes we can. Easy money. Easy money. And now it's just a case of, is the Skoda spotted on a high amount of health? Easy money again. Oh, ladies and gents, boys and girls, another 5,000 combined after doing nothing for the first 4 or 5 minutes of the battle. And then in the next, like 4 minutes of the battle, we were just able to shine. This DBV-152, for me, it feels really fun. It's a lot like the Grilla, which I love, but it just feels like it's a touch above with that alpha damage, with the fully flexible turret, and importantly, with the camo. All right, one more for the road. Let's roll out on Malinovka, and undoubtedly this tank is going to be way better on maps like Malinovka, Prokhorovka, Muravanka, Redshire, those kind of maps at long range. And really where the vehicle falls off will be your Himmelsdorfs, your Ensk, those kind of more close quarters combat maps where this vehicle will struggle. And it doesn't feel very special within that regard. So those are the maps where you're just going to have to try and get like 3-4 shots in. And if you pen 3 shots in this tank, you know, you're up to 2,400. If you pen 4 shots, then you're packing like 3,200 damage, you know? You don't have to hit many shots in this tank to still feel like you're influencing the battle. Ah, Mr. EBR, you were a little bit too cheeky there, weren't you? Well, I hope you're going to be able to get away from this. And this is where Perfect Charge really helps out. Boom, baby! 807 into the most important tank on the enemy team. This thing's lovely for hitting light tanks. It's going to make some light tanks cry, that's for sure. And they deserve to on Malinovka, right? Oh, no. Yeah. It wouldn't be fair if I didn't tell you that this vehicle, it doesn't take artillery hits very well. A little bit better than the Grilla, right? It isn't a little bit better than the Grilla for taking HE shells, but goodness gracious, is it frustrating. I had a game on Paris where there was an Object 261 on the enemy team who just kept blind firing the bush that I wanted to camp in again and again and again and again. And I wonder if it was because they saw, oh well, DBV-152 must be a CC or a super tester. Or if it's just that it's a valid and decent opportunity to shoot this vehicle. It's slightly armored, it's quite large, good opportunity for the enemy team. And man, talk about good opportunity, that STRV-103B definitely was for me. The 152mm on this vehicle will be able to overmatch all of the upper plates of the STRV-103B, unlike the Grilla, which would ricochet off most of it. Man, do you ever get bored for seeing 800 alpha damage hits? It's really interesting how they can increase the alpha damage by only 50, but it just seems infinitely more satisfying. And I'm not sure if I'm ever going to be able to feel the same way about my Grilla and when I'm hitting shells in my Grilla. Come on, E75, just drive straight. It just hits. It hits. It hits, it hits, it hits. And with the double field mod improving accuracy, I feel like it's definitely it's not a Grilla with regards to its accuracy. In a Grilla, I feel like I'll hit 15 out of 15 shots. In this tank, I'll probably hit like 12 or 13 of them. It's maybe 13, 14, around that kind of area. And sometimes that can make all of the difference, right? But sometimes you'll actually want to have the increased alpha because it doesn't really matter too much about whether you're going... You don't need to have a pinpoint shot if you've got the broadside of a tank or if you're managing to overmatch because you've got the larger caliber gun. Okay. So all in all, I want to come to the conclusion about the DBV-152. Do I think that it's going to be a fantastic, amazing, overpowered tank and it's going to be the new meta inside the game? No, 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 no. I think it's probably just a touch better all in all than the Grilla, but I definitely don't think it's going to be the new best TD. Sniping tank destroyers that don't get involved in the battle usually end up getting very lackluster win ratios. Let me tell you, there's a reason why the Grilla has one of the worst win ratio differences in the game, and why the 268 version 5, I think that's what it's called, also has quite a lackluster win ratio. Any tank destroyer that doesn't have armor doesn't do well in World of Tanks. It's that simple, at least with regards to influencing the battle. There are some tank destroyers like the WTRV-100 that can still pump out damage, and I'm sure this thing's going to get very good average damage totals, but I feel like it's going to get a bad win ratio as well, where lots of players are just doing the damage at the end of the battle where it's already kind of lost for their team. Oh, I didn't expect to get spotted so easily there, but man, look at that flexible turret. The gun handling, I said again, take your smooth ride, take your experimental turbo, take your snapshot, get a snapshot directive as well. I didn't use a snapshot directive in any of the games, I believe, that you've seen me play in this tank review today. But I definitely will be paying that 9,000 credits a game to be able to improve the turret traverse. And when I do that, this thing's going to be a touch above. I'm going to 100% invest an experimental level 3 on this tank, and I'm going to 100% invest probably bond vents on this thing as well. I'm going to make sure I also have the that snapshot directive, and with that, I think this thing does become a powerhouse. So all in all, come to the conclusion, Uncle Scrubs. Do I think this is a great tank? It's not a great tank. Is it a good tank? No, I think it's an average tank at best, but its playstyle is very fun. Its gun feels good. Its point and click adventure, it just feels good. There's a reason why the Grilla feels amazing. This is basically a Czech Grilla. It's just a reward vehicle. It's not going to make you extra credits. It will make you extra crew training, but for a lot of the dedicated players out there, you've probably already got your Czech tank destroyer crew out into a good position. This vehicle will be kind of annoying for a lot of players who don't have the TVP-100, because you will likely have to train an entire crew just for this tank. And this is the kind of tank that needs a lot of crew skills. I would definitely recommend Zero Skill Brothers in Arms if you're deciding to get this vehicle and you don't already have the TVP-100. All in all, I guess a big question that a lot of you might have is, will I get this on my free-to-play account? I have like 1.3 million free experience on my free-to-play account. Do I want to get this one? It's close. It's close. It's definitely more interesting than the heavies that have gone into the assembly shop recently, but I still don't think this is something that I want to have on my free-to-play account. It's not bad, don't get me wrong, but I think I'll try and save my million free experience for something that's just a little bit more OP. But for my main account, I'm going to enjoy this. Will it replace a Grilla? Yeah, I think it will. I think this thing is going to replace the Grilla for me. And that pains me, considering how much I enjoy the Grilla. It just feels like a happy therapy tank for me. I guess this thing with its less accuracy and the fact that I kind of like get baited into using vents and not using an aiming device might end up frustrating me more than the Grilla. I think this is going to be a fun, relaxing tank to play because big numbers feel better, right? So, final word. Do I think this is a must-have tank? No, far from it. Is it an interesting vehicle? The first assembly shop tank destroyer with good feeling gun? Yes. Yes, it does. Is it worth going right now and converting 1 million free experience with your gold to be able to get this thing immediately? No, not at all. That's going to cost you 40,000 gold at this non-boosted rate. This tank is not worth 40,000 gold, not by a long shot. This is one for collectors or people who have been grinding free experience or just converting it at like a 40-to-1 ratio. But even at a 40-to-1 ratio, that still makes this a 25,000 gold tank, which is very expensive, ladies and gents. Anyway, That's it for today. Really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did and it was useful, make sure you give it a thumbs up. If you hated it, give it a thumbs down, and let me know what you think about the DBV-152 in the comments down below. Do you think it looks absolutely amazing, or do you think it looks thoroughly mediocre? Do you think it's going to be good for the game that there's a new 800 alpha damage tank? And do you think, considering 80,000 of these are going to go into the game, is it going to be the new annoying tank to face against? And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.